afternoon. ¿Me escuchan? Okay. All right. Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. We're here to obviously very concerned to voice our dissent of the Supreme Court's reckless endangerment of all Americans, really, not just Latinos, but starting with those who fit ICE current profile of undesirables. And we're here to dissent publicly because it applies to all of us. As it may apply to you with this decision, or future decisions may apply to a broader scope of Americans. So we feel that this decision has a current impact and it presents a clear and present danger to people like us. But it also sets the path for future decisions that could endanger a broader number of Americans. And this is about us today, of people that look like us, or have an accent like us, or who have a last name like we do. But in the future, it could be somebody else. So that's why we're here to say that we dissent. And on September 16, we send out a letter to all Americans explaining how we stood behind Justice Sotomayor's unequivocal dissent of this decision. And we stand with her, we support what she said, and we agree with her. And so we're here to tell the American people that although these are difficult times, although these are dangerous times, we will continue to push forward as a community. We will represent our constituents the right way by educating them and telling them the do's and the don'ts given this decision. And we will continue to move forward as Latinos in the United States of America. With that, I want to introduce to you a member that has been very vocal about this and one that has a very clear opinion about it, that she has articulated it many, many times, Congresswoman Norma Torres.
Thank you, Chairman Adriano. And good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. The Supreme Court has sent our country a very clear message. If you are Latino, if you speak Spanish, or work hard for a living, your rights are now conditional. This ruling returns us to an America that we swore we would never see again. One where your skin color, your language, your work makes you a target of your own government. And let me be clear. This decision is an unchecked power that attacks Latino families, hardworking families, and anyone who believes in equal justice. Justice Sotomayor's dissent is a clear warning to everyone. Our Fourth Amendment rights, which protect every individual from arbitrary interference by law enforcement officers, may no longer be protected. For those who look like me, a certain way, speak a certain language, or hold legitimate low-wage jobs. For those who don't understand, may be having a hard time understanding, I want you to imagine for a moment, walk a day in my shoes, continuously having to look over your shoulder, trying to protect your children from being targeted by our own government. This is about fear. Fear that justifies discrimination, tears apart our rights, and weaponizes government against our hard-working communities, regardless of our immigration status. History has showed that silence in the face of injustice is complicity. Now, more than ever, we cannot remain silent. We must fight and speak loud enough to be heard across the country. For every Latino child, for every working family, and every American who believes in equality. Liberty is not for sale. Justice is not conditional. And the Supreme Court justices have failed us miserably. And we must work together to right this wrong. Exercise your right to register to vote. Vote. Make sure that you are also turning people out to vote. Advocate for your rights and raise your voice. The power of this country lies in all Americans, whether you look like me or not. La Corte Suprema ha enviado un mensaje muy claro. Si eres latino, hablas español o trabajas duro, tus derechos son condicionables. Este fallo afecta a familias trabajadoras y a todos los que creen en la justicia. La jueza Sotomayor advierte, nuestras protecciones de la cuarta enmienda podrían no aplicarse a quienes se ven, hablan o trabajan de cierta manera. Imagínense todos ustedes tener que proteger a nuestros hijos de ser un objetivo de nuestro propio gobierno. Esto es miedo convertido en arma, discriminación e justicia legalizada. El silencio es complicidad. No podemos quedarnos callados. La libertad no está en venta y la justicia no es condicional. La Corte Suprema nos falló. Ahora depende de nosotros. El poder es nuestro. Regístrase para votar. Vota. Motiva a otros a votar. Levanta tu voz. El poder está en nuestras manos. Gracias. I now would like to introduce, or you will introduce someone?
Bien, gracias Norma. El presidente Kennedy dijo, el derecho de cada persona se disminuye cuando el derecho de una persona está en peligro. La cuarta enmienda nos protege a todos y nosotros no podemos disminuir esas protecciones. Nosotros vamos ahora a presentar a alguien que también comparte la posición de Norma, la nuestra, el representante Joaquín Castro del estado de Texas.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you to all my colleagues today and also the press for covering this very important issue. This ruling is a green light for racial profiling. Ultimately, that means harassment of law-abiding people, including U.S. citizens. The ruling says basically that law enforcement can treat entire communities of people as suspects, not because of what they've done, but because of the color of their skin, where they work, how they speak English, how they sound. This is not, quote unquote, reasonable suspicion. It's prejudice and it's racism that's being legalized. The court made this sweeping change on what's called its shadow docket. No full hearing, no transparency. The credibility of the Supreme Court has even been brought up by other judges, both Republican and Democratic appointees, who have noted that the Supreme Court is increasingly unwilling to explain itself when it overturns lower court rulings. The impacts of this ruling are not abstract. They're very real, and they gut the Fourth Amendment. And we're seeing the impacts right now. Every single American, regardless of who you are, should be concerned by this. Families will continue to fear going to work, kids will fear going to school, and hardworking folks who contribute to our economy, our communities, and our country will hide and step back from public life just to stay safe. I have heard from so many people all over San Antonio, all over Texas, and different parts of the country, in immigrant communities, and also employers, who have said that even U.S. citizens, even legal permanent residents, are now frightened to show up for work, frightened to send their kids to school. So we demand clear limits on law enforcement power, real oversight, and a commitment to the notion that we see individuals, not harmful and racist stereotypes, when we look at Latinos and others in this country. We join Justice Sotomayor, Kagan, and Brown Jackson in saying, I dissent. I dissent to attacks on the Fourth Amendment, individual liberties, and our democracy.
Gracias. De nuevo, el uso del perfil racial ha existido por décadas. Lo que esta decisión hace es que le da luz verde al uso de esa práctica racista, xenofóbica, que hace tanto daño para nuestras comunidades. Con eso le presentamos al representante de California, el representante Juan Vargas.
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all of you that are here in the media. What an incredibly racist decision. What an incredibly racist decision that it says basically you can be stopped, you can be detained, you can be arrested simply because of your ethnicity. That's what this says. That's why we dissent. It's an outrage. I was thinking, when my first daughter was born, I was working on the old house where we live now, and I would often take her to the Home Depot with me in my truck because we were picking stuff up, and I was trying to teach her Spanish. I could have easily been picked up if this law was in place when I'm trying to teach my daughter how to speak Spanish, because I would fit the profile. I'm obviously a Latino, I'm speaking Spanish, and I'm driving an old truck. I then would fit this racial profiling. That's outrageous, then, that the court allows this. Now, it is also interesting what my colleague said. It's very important to know this. The lower courts are taking a look at the law and saying, this is outrageous, you can't do this, and they stop it. And then it gets appealed to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court says, okay, but they don't say why. Because they know they can't explain it. That's why they use this shadow docket. The only rule they seem to have, as was explained by Brown Jackson, is that no matter what it is, this administration wins. That's the only rule they have. They violate all the other rules of law and decency, and that's what this does. Lo que estamos viendo aquí, que esta ley, lo que están haciendo, esta aplicación, es racista. ¿Por qué? Porque te pueden detener solamente por cómo te miras, porque eres un latino o latina, porque hablas español, porque tienes un trabajo que es no muy lucrativo, porque manejas un troque. Entonces, lo que dijo la Corte Suprema es que sí te pueden detener, te pueden arrestar solamente por eso, sin ninguna información sobre tu ciudadanía o nada más, solamente cómo te pareces, ¿verdad? Eso es racista, eso es ilegal. Y lo que vemos es que las cortes, cuando primero agarran esta ley, esta propuesta, dicen, bueno, esto es en contra de la ley, no puedes hacer esto. Entonces llega la Corte Suprema, donde Trump ha puesto un montón de esos jueces, y ellos dicen, sí, sí puedes, pero no se explican por qué. Es que le llaman el shadow docket, es decir, hacen decisiones sin oír toda la información, y entonces las decisiones sin decir por qué, el por qué. La única razón que dan es que esta administración siempre gana. Es la única ley que vemos. Y por eso tenemos que decir nosotros, estamos en contra de esto, porque es una ley, una aplicación racista. Muchísimas gracias.
De California, el representante Gil Cisneros.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to my colleagues for all being here today. The Supreme Court decided that the color of your skin and the tone of your voice is enough for reasonable cause for federal agents to stop and question the status of your citizenship. This horrible Supreme Court ruling gives federal agents the green light to target people who look or sound Latino, people like me, people like us. ICE has been inciting pure chaos and fear into our communities, and the Supreme Court has authorized full-on racial profiling now. Let me be clear, this is cruel, regressive, and un-American, and it's personal. Today, I received another video of unidentified ICE agents, no badge, no markings, in an unmarked car, arresting someone for being Latino, a sight that is becoming all too common. They have our community living in fear. This morning, I spoke to a gentleman, an immigrant, who became a U.S. citizen, who said he now carries his passport and citizenship papers for fear of being confronted by ICE. Hard-working people who abide by the law, who only want to make a better life for their families, should not have to live in fear. This is not the American way. We cannot sit back quietly while our courts degrade the rights of our country that our country was founded on. I'm here today to echo Justice Sotomayor's dissent against this repulsive Supreme Court ruling. We all dissent. I served our country in uniform, and I stand for the principles that it was founded on, that America is a place for everyone, regardless of race, class, creed, or religion. And I will continue that fight with my friends, my neighbors, so that we can all walk down the street without fear of harassment or persecution. So thank you all.
We dissent, and with that, we will present Representative Jesus Chuy Garcia from the state of Illinois.
Thank you, Chairman. I add my voice to the voices of my colleagues in the Hispanic Caucus. I represent the southwest side of Chicago and 23 suburban communities. The Supreme Court's extremist justices have greenlit what ICE has long been doing in communities like mine, stopping and arresting people on how they look, the color of their skin, the language they speak, or where they work. Racial profiling is one of the many abusive tactics that ICE deploys. They're targeting people who look a certain way, kidnapping them off the streets and disappearing them into detention centers without due process. These tactics are lawless, and they are getting people killed. This weekend, a family in my district lost a dad. Silverio Villegas Gonzalez was killed by ICE on Friday in Franklin Park. What happened to this man was state violence, not public safety. There's a lot we don't know about what happened, but the footage that's been released shows Silverio being followed and stopped by two agents in unmarked vehicle and then trying to get away from them. Fleeing a traffic stop is not a justification for law enforcement to kill someone, and we need transparency and accountability for what took place. The same day, ICE agents detained my constituent, William Jimenez, in Little Village, my neighborhood, as he walked out of a barbershop with his wife. ICE refused to disclose the location, even to his attorneys, thanks to protests at ICE's Broadview Processing Center and pressure from the community. His family finally learned that he was detained at Broadview, as we suspected. Williams' abduction was not random. He is a plaintiff in a lawsuit against Home Depot and off-duty police for targeting immigrant day laborers. And Sunday morning, after leaving church, a family was stopped and the dad and brother were taken away by ICE. Everyday families are being separated. Providers, nurturers, and caretakers all ripped away. These are not isolated incidents. This is not due process. This is an abuse of power. If ICE can kill one of our neighbors in broad daylight, if they can arrest someone for joining a lawsuit or simply for being Latino, what's to stop it from happening to anyone in our country? And that's what the Supreme Court what they were doing is so dangerous. It's not just about racial profiling, it's about giving legal protections to ICE systemic discrimination and violence against our communities. History will remember who stood up for justice, and it will not be kind to those who chose to terrorize, abuse, and commit violence in the name of MAGA, or to those judges who let it happen. Our communities deserve better than a secret police in a corrupt court. Thank you.
Thank you. And as I said earlier, many have said, we concur with Justice Sotomayor and her strong and unequivocal dissent. I'll introduce to you someone that was part of the movement to nominate her to the U.S. Supreme Court successfully, our Congresswoman, La Luchadora, Nidia Velázquez.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman, for bringing all of us together. Last week, the Supreme Court effectively legalized racial profiling. They handed ICE a blank check to stop, question, and detain people just for looking Latino, speaking Spanish, or working a low-wage job. Justice Sotomayor warned, we should not have to live in a country where the government can seize anyone who looks Latino, speaks Spanish, and appears to work a low-wage job. Justice Roberts, this is your court. This is going to be your legacy. History will not be kind to you. It is shameful. That is exactly the reality that this court has created. They have given mass federal agents the power to pull anyone who looks Latino off the street for any reason. And it is not just immigrants getting caught in this dragnet. American citizens have already been handcuffed, shoved against fences, and dragged to warehouses under these raids. This ruling reduces Latinos to second-class citizenship in the United States. And this is just the latest in a series of disgraceful decisions by this court. They have gutted voting rights, attacked reproductive freedom, undermined protections for workers and consumers, and now strip millions of Latinos of their most basic constitutional guarantees. They have put the desires of the Trump administration over the rule of law. We refuse to accept that. The CHC stands united. Racial profiling has no place in America. We will fight to protect our communities, restore constitutional rights, and hold this administration accountable. Because if the Supreme Court can roll back these rights, no American freedoms are safe. Thank you.
Gracias. Preguntas, questions? Yes? Well, lo primero, the first thing is that everybody obviously has the right to secure an attorney that will advise them, and every case is a different case given particular circumstances. So we ask, first of all, we ask those people to get the legal help that they are entitled to and they should get. in their own city, their own town, their own jurisdiction. And obviously, each case will be a different case, but the fundamental question is whether someone should be stopped because of how they look or how they have an accent or whether they have a low-paying job, whether that should be legal at all. And so that's the fundamental question. We want them to be educated on the issue, and we will provide greater orientation to the general public about this particular issue because it's somewhat confusing to many. But at the end of the day, they should have the legal services that they need to be able to answer in a courtroom. Anybody wants to? ¿Otra pregunta? We will defer to the ranking member of the Western Hemisphere,
Yeah.
Joaquin Castro.
Well, I'll let these guys do the Spanish, but I just saw this morning the decertification, and it's important to understand that the United States has worked with Colombia and other nations to combat drug trafficking for years. And part of that success has come because the United States has committed resources to do that. And so my staff and I and others are going to take a look at exactly why the administration, the State Department, has chosen decertification. Fortunately, I believe that there's a waiver that has been put in place for now, so the monies will still be going there. And again, I just underscore how important it's been, that partnership in combating drug trafficking. And I hope that we can continue as two nations to work together on that. I'll also say that I've been very troubled by President Trump's approach to Latin America so far. What I see is a United States president taking us back decades in his approach, where the relationship with Latin America was one of antagonism. And we've seen now the administration make a decision to execute a military strike on 2 ships or boats that they claim were drug trafficking ships. However, they have not provided any evidence, any proof whatsoever, other than asking the American people and the world to take their word for it. And that's not the American way. It's not the American way to summarily execute people and say, take our word for it that they were bad people. As Americans, we have to expect better than that. We have to expect more from our government. And I believe that it gives the United States a severe black eye around the world when a president and an American government conducts itself that way. How does the American government speak out about the Uyghur situation in China with any kind of moral authority when its own president is summarily making a decision to summarily execute people without explanation? It's a very dangerous precedent that's being set, and I think that deserves more discussion and attention as well.
Otras preguntas in the back? We have been speaking about that. Obviously, this is a decision from the U.S. Supreme Court, but it's one that warrants a discussion, particularly among members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, as to how and when we should answer this legislatively. Yes. Any other questions? Preguntas? Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you.